I don't think you can ever really template private mortgages. When we're managing 100 loans, you're always going to have 2, 3, maybe 4 that are in some state of flux. Something is not going exactly the way it's supposed to. I would never panic in a default scenario or something goes off the rails, because there's a way usually to get to where a sale takes place without the involvement of lawyers. Having an administrator is much, much stronger approach than just relying on a lawyer. You shouldn't just trust an administrator because they have a license. If there's smoke and the firemen are standing outside with the hoses ready to go, like, how do you feel? So Nick, what's the role of a mortgage administrator, and why should investors even care about having one?
That title, that profession is definitely in my top 5 of like things I never knew existed as far as like a job title. Before getting into this space, I definitely knew what a realtor was, a lawyer, an appraiser, a broker, but a mortgage administrator, that's something I've come to learn about over time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for simplicity, let's convert the word mortgage administrator or administrator into manager. That's essentially what an administrator is it's a manager, a babysitter, if you will. Now, the work of an administrator, in my estimation, can be split into 3 compartments, 3 sections. One, underwriting, right? So doing all the work and the due diligence to determine or sort applications into weaker and stronger.
Gotcha.
And in that process comes a key moment where a decision is made whether we want to make an offer. And for those that we make offers on, there's also an element of negotiation. So you've got this skill set, right? A mortgage administration skill set is divided into 3 sections: underwriting, managing, meaning managing the loan in term, and then enforcement. So dealing with when things don't go the way they're supposed to, those 3. And then you can break each one down. And so let's look at the first one first, underwriting. There are multiple hats in there, right? So you've got multiple skill sets that are needed. One, you got that analytical mind that can look at the collateral, look at the financial circumstances, look at the exit strategy potential, and kind of make a determination and assign a strength to each application. Say, well, this one, kind of weak here, but very strong here, and okay here. I'm going to make that sort of a mediocre application. And then you go, oh, very strong collateral, very strong exit strategy, very strong ability to pay, and that becomes sort of one you really want to chase. But then you've got a second skill set that says, okay, what's the offer we want to make? What's the structure that makes the most sense and is going to protect our investors if we lend this money to this borrower? So you've got sorting, right? You got the sorting, and then of the high quality ones that you see, you've got this structuring phase, right, where we're crafting offers. And then there's the negotiation phase where you send the offers out, and now you're competing to get those borrowers you want to choose you, right, and get paperwork signed and get things legalized and formalized. So that's sort of the underwriting side of administration. Now, remember, you don't have to have a mortgage administrator work for you. You could do all of this yourself, maybe with the advice of a lawyer, right? Maybe the advice of a mortgage broker, and you spearheading all of it. So you essentially doing the bulk of the sorting, right? Choosing the ones you like, and then crafting your own offers, and then negotiating with mortgage brokers or borrowers directly and their lawyers to get to an agreement that everybody can live with. So it's not difficult work per se, but there is a lot of work. Right?
The crafting, would you say you've templatized this by now, or is it literally still case by case even after all this volume?
I don't think you can ever really template private mortgages. Now, you can systemize the way you go through or the way you look at or approach structure and offers, but there are unique intricacies in every deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's actually a great question, because that's where experience comes in, right? Experience is what allows, for example, me to see things that you wouldn't see.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just you mentioned, it's simple and it's got its own sort of like a mechanized approach, but there is an art form to all this at the end of the day.
Oh, there's no question there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay. So underwriting, 3 hats, right? Sorting, offer structuring, negotiating.
Yep.
Now, once you fund a mortgage, you enter in a different phase of administration. And we have different people that do this day to day, which is babysit all the loans, right?
I didn't think you were going to use that term, but yeah. Okay.
Well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, we are running checks on a regular basis to see that property taxes are in order, income taxes are being kept up to date, properties are being kept properly, taken care of. Those are the assets that protect our investment. So now it's not as easy as it sounds that we can't just walk into every house we have a mortgage on and inspect it all the time, but anytime there is any reason or indicator that that something may be awry, we can approach a borrower and arrange an inspection, or ask for an updated property tax statement or an updated notice of assessment from the government. These are things that are in the mortgage commitment if you do them right. Now, if you did this on your own, and I see private lenders who do this on their own all the time with like a 1-page mortgage commitment, there's a lot that's left out, but we're pretty detailed. But based on your commitment, the way that you structure a mortgage commitment, there will be conditions precedent to funding, meaning these are the conditions the borrower has to satisfy before they get the money. And then there's conditions ongoing, which are conditions they must satisfy, or reporting conditions that they must satisfy during the mortgage term.
Okay, so because you said you can't go in and have a peek and see how everyone's doing all the time, but would you say that all those conditions are sort of like their own tripwire for you to look in deeper if ever something kind of just doesn't get respected, or there's like a red flag that gets raised?
They're in place to give us the right to ask questions, right?
Okay.
The right to inspect, and so on, and so under certain conditions and so on. So, the borrower typically holds all the cards. They can, as long as they're meeting their obligations, we're not just invading their space or anything like that. But the mortgage commitment is so important, because that's what, phase 2 of administration is managing the commitment, managing the agreement. Somebody has got to pay attention, right? You agreed to these things, right? Let's make sure you're following through.
Yep.
And that's that second phase. So you can see how different that is, and what a different skill set and what different types of people you need in those roles than the person who's sorting applications, analyzing applications, or the person who's putting offers together and structuring commitments, or the person who's negotiating terms.
Oh yeah, totally different set of responsibilities.
Completely different responsibilities. Now, again, if you're doing this on your own, you're doing everything. You're doing it all. Right? So you just have to take this hat off, put this hat on. And so now if you're doing it for 2 or 3 loans, it's manageable. If you're doing it for 100 loans, you need different people. Okay. And then the third, phase of administration is when things don't go the way they're supposed to go. Now, the good news.
Okay. So if things go well, no more phases. Mortgage administrators?
No, because the manager, right, that person who's monitoring that, the babysitter, will see it through to its end, to its conclusion. As long as it goes the way it's supposed to, we advance the money. 12 months later, it gets paid back, right? There may be an extension or a renewal in there, right? That's all part of the manager's responsibility to manage that loan. But no defaults, no interruptions of payments or any of that. It discharges.
Okay.
Now, if there is an event of default, I can't stress this enough. You really do need a team of people that are working on this, and it takes, in our book, for example, we're managing 100 loans. you're always going to have 2, 3, maybe 4 in our case that are in some state of flux. Something is not going exactly the way it's supposed to. We manage, I think, very well, which is why we have such a low number of, I guess, problem children, if that's what you'd class them as. But they take a lot of time
Yeah.
to manage,
And
because
from
you
what I
have to
understand,
be
yeah.
you have to be even more careful about how you step, and you're sort of micromanaging as opposed to just macro managing.
And the reason for that low number, would you say, is split between step one and step two being executed so well, and also
100%.
because sometimes, life just happens, and you would have approved this knowing what you knew today. It's just that like curveballs come out of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can be great at step 1, great at step 2, and it can still happen,
Yeah.
right? Things change. People experience different, things in their lives that change the circumstances from the time you approve the loan to the time something goes wrong. Um, but what I can say is, if you don't do a good job and in 1 and 2, you will more than likely have a lot more challenges that require step 3.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, as the leader of Magnetic, our entire focus is 1 and 2 being as best as they can be, right? As tight as they can be, to reduce the occurrences or the necessity for step 3, but also to uncover the symptoms that may lead to step 3 early. This is a very rarely talked about part of administration, is can you do the job so well, in specifically in step 2, right? That if there's smoke, you see it before it becomes fire and can
Yes.
attend to it, right? This is and this is where I think a lot of private lenders who don't pay enough attention in the management phase end up with more fires than they needed to, because there's going to be smoke.
Well, the first time I would get those emails, like speaking as an investor, sometimes the email would be something along the lines of, this happened, no big deal, no worries. And it didn't seem like a big deal. And the email was just mentioning, we're watching closely. That's it.
Yeah, there's no need to panic, right? When there's smoke.
Yeah, it's all very calm. It's just that we're watching.
Correct. And if you just the fire analogy is a great one. If there's smoke and there's nobody around, and there's no fire department to call, right? And you're worried that smoke's going to become fire, there's more of a fear factor.
Yes.
But if there's smoke and the firemen are standing outside with the hoses ready to go, like, how do you feel? You just feel better, right? It's no different than, listen, the other analogy would be medical, right? I mean, it's been proven over and over again. Most afflictions are the rates of success in curing disease and whatnot are better with early detection. It's the same. It's the same in our space. So, we try to really put emphasis on what we control and what we're able to do, and we never panic in a default scenario or something goes off the rails, because if we've done a good job in 1, right, then we've probably got very good collateral. There's an ability to pay something, even if you can't pay all of it. There's an ability to pay something, and there's always the exit strategy of a sale, and the sale doesn't necessarily have to be through the legal channel, which adds cost. So if it becomes inevitable that the only exit is a sale, and you've taken the time to show compassion, be patient, communicate well with the borrower, establish rapport, and you're sensitive to the fact that this person may be going through something really difficult, in that they're coming to the realization that they're going to lose the house or that they have to sell. There's a way usually to get to that place where a sale takes place without the involvement of lawyers, without, it become
Amicably.
really messy. Yeah. Yeah. So, enforcement through the legal channels is the last resort, right? And um, having an administrator, if somebody said, what's the number one benefit of having an administrator? It's that we do it every day. We're doing it every day. I'm coming in. My team is looking at every mortgage every day. You're out as an investor. You're working. You're building your own business, building your life, enjoying time with your family. That's the whole idea. When we talk about this being a passive investment, it's not passive from an information perspective. You know this, right? You're in the loop, but somebody is paying attention. There's a fireman patrolling.
Yeah.
Right? There's a fireman, there's police patrolling the mortgages on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly and an annual basis, to make sure that if there's smoke, we see it, attend to it.
Patrolling the
if
house that is your portfolio.
Yeah, and when there's no smoke, we're knocking on doors and saying a lot hi and shaking hands and kissing babies and doing all the things that a good human being would do. Just be a good human. That's it. We're providing a service. The nice thing about private mortgages is that when it's done right, it truly is a win-win, right? The borrower is getting what they need to bridge themselves from a place where something, happened, to a place where the waters are calm again, and they haven't had to leave the housing market, which is very difficult to get into in the first place.
Yep.
And investors are being paid a very nice, healthy return that can actually get them somewhere in their wealth building journey. And so it can be, and the administrator is in the middle, playing referee, so to speak. Right.
Administrator, the doer of the good work.
Yeah. So investors should care. And listen, probably the toughest thing is there's not that many great administrators out there. There's not a lot to begin with, right? I think in 2016 or 15, when I got my administrator's license, I remember there was only 100 licenses.
That's it?
Yeah. There's only 100 licenses in Ontario. And
Man.
a lot of those are small, mix or whatnot, who are managing family money or whatnot. They're not doing what we do. So for the public, especially not in a syndicate fashion, the way we do it, we're piecing mortgages together for different people and
Right.
offering the kind of flexibility we do. So it's difficult to find a good administrator, and you shouldn't just trust an administrator because they have a license. It's important to if you watch something like this, you should test us. You should ask us questions. You should be involved. We have the Magnetic Forum, for example, where we try to be as transparent as possible about what's going on and pass messages and share education and be transparent about how we look at things and how we approach things and whatnot. So not all administrators are created equal. I'm not saying we're the best at it. I'm just saying I think we do a really good job, and we pay attention to the craft, and we're trying to improve at all times, trying to learn from everything that we see, as we talked about earlier, case by case. Every case is different. So I was just talking to one of my partners today, saying to him, it's so important whenever we're going through any kind of scenario that we try to make a model of it, right? Like, you just never know when another scenario is going to come up that's similar, that looks similar. And you can look back and say, hey, remember when we had that one that looked kind of like this? What did we do? How did it turn out? What could we learn from that? And how could we apply it here? Right.
Yeah.
So, I think, to answer the initial question of the episode, what's the role of a private mortgage administrator? It's a manager. That's what we are. We're managers of the private mortgage investment, and how important it is to investors. Well, unless you have the time and energy and desire, to to look at all these different phases and become, somewhat of a master of them, then it's really important, if you want to participate in private mortgages, that you have an administrator in your corner. I would say that having an administrator is much, much stronger approach than just relying on a lawyer. A lawyer is only a piece. It's only a small piece of the puzzle. So I think if you're getting involved in this, you either take it on yourself, right? Learn everything you can, get advice from an administrator, advice from a lawyer at different parts, or align yourself with an administrator that is competent and has a plan and has systems and is going to report to you. I think that's another big piece of it, right? That is going to report to you in a manner that keeps you feeling like you're in the loop at all times.
Yeah, no, thanks for doing this. You mentioned the community, and every time we do a deep dive, like just the other call with one of your legal staff or team members on the commitment piece, which is going to be an upcoming episode. The commitment piece, it's so nuanced and well crafted, and I just wanted you to put it into words for the viewers.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I did a good job of that, and until next time, happy lending.
Happy lending.